In the 1980s, a boy named David was raised in a community that believed the outside world was dangerous. He was taught that strangers couldn't be trusted, that safety only existed within their small circle, and that stepping beyond their borders would lead to harm. He never questioned it, because belief came before language, before choice. He prayed to survive each sunrise, and then, at 17, something unthinkable happened. The group disbanded. David was released into the world he had always feared, and nothing happened. No fire, no monsters, just silence, cars, people. And yet, despite being free, his fear didn't vanish. When someone smiled at him, he panicked. When he tasted new food, his stomach turned. His mind kept painting danger over everything, even peace. Not because he was weak, but because his beliefs had become his reality. And that reality didn't end when the cult did. His brain kept running the same program. He wasn't seeing life, he was seeing belief. So here's the real question. How much of what you know was installed the same way? How many of your fears, habits, identities were planted before you ever asked for them? David's cult had walls. Yours may be invisible, because the truth is, belief doesn't need chains to keep you trapped. Sometimes all it needs is repetition. And that's where it all begins, before thought, before choice, before you even open your eyes. 1. Belief is the mind's wallpaper. Before you even lift your head off the pillow, your mind's already decorating the world with invisible paint. That paint? It's belief. You didn't choose the color, it was chosen for you. Parents, school, heartbreak, movies, and all the shoulds that got planted without permission. So now, when you look at the world, you're not really seeing it. You're seeing a projection shaped by old programming. You're inside a mental house you didn't design, but you think it's home. Take someone who's always been told they're too much, loud, expressive, emotional. Over time, belief sets in. I must be a problem. Now, every reaction from others gets filtered through that lens. A sigh means annoyance. Silence means rejection. But is that real? Or is that just old wallpaper repeating its pattern? When you start seeing that your reactions might just be echoes of someone else's beliefs, you begin peeling back the illusion. You'd be surprised how deeply this programming runs. It's not just about big things like religion or politics. It's in the way you tie your shoes, greet strangers, or trust someone. If your dad was paranoid, you might have learned to scan everyone like a threat detector. If your mom feared failure, maybe you freeze before taking risks. And yet, most people never ask where their habits come from. They just live inside them, mistaking the familiar for the true. But here's the twist most never see. The beliefs you inherited didn't ask for your permission. They just moved in. You didn't examine them, you embodied them. And now they're making choices in your name. So the real question isn't what do I believe? It's who handed me this belief to begin with? And once you start asking that, something strange begins to unravel. 2. Your mind can't tell the difference between truth and repetition. Repetition is sneaky. It doesn't need logic, proof, or reality on its side. It just needs time. Say something enough times, and the brain stops checking if it's true. That's not awareness. That's programming. Your mind is built to conserve energy, and one of its shortcuts is assuming that the familiar must be real. You've probably believed things like money is evil or people can't change, not because they're true, but because they were said enough to sound true. Familiarity tricks perception. Think about advertising. You hear a jingle over and over, and suddenly it's stuck in your head, even if you hate it. Now apply that same process to your beliefs. Maybe you grew up hearing, "You're just not good at math," or "Artists don't make money." Years later, those statements aren't memories anymore. They're identity. Your mind doesn't know the difference between evidence and repetition. It simply takes what's been played the most and files it under fact. But when did it actually become true? It happens in relationships too. If someone constantly accuses you of being selfish, Your mind starts scanning for signs to confirm it. You forget the times you gave without asking anything in return. You focus only on what fits the storyline. That's confirmation bias, and it's running on autopilot. You're not evaluating life. You're searching for proof that supports your programming. And this is where the illusion deepens. You think you're thinking clearly, but really, you're just echoing old scripts. So ask yourself this. What feels true in your life right now simply because it's been repeated the most? Is it the belief that you'll always be stuck? That success is for other people? That you're too old, too broken, too late? These aren't facts. These are mantras you didn't mean to memorize. The mind doesn't prioritize truth. It prioritizes predictability. And if truth ever did knock on the door, would your mind even let it in? Or would it say, "That doesn't sound like me," and slam it shut? 3. The beliefs you cling to are often the ones that hurt you. It's strange, isn't it? The beliefs that hurt the most are usually the ones we hold the tightest. Not because they're comforting, but because they're familiar. Beliefs like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll always be alone," don't feel good, but they feel like home. Why? Because they were etched into the brain during moments of vulnerability. A bad breakup, a teacher's criticism, or years of subtle rejection. Over time, they stopped feeling like wounds and started feeling like identity. That's how the illusion becomes a lifestyle. Imagine someone who believes they're destined to fail. They might avoid applying for jobs, procrastinate on creative projects, or sabotage relationships. Not because they want to suffer, but because their belief system has programmed them to expect pain. So they create it before life does. It's a weird kind of control. If I ruin it, at least I'm not surprised. That belief isn't protective, it's corrosive, and yet the mind holds onto it like a badge of realism. Sometimes people wear their beliefs like armor. I don't trust anyone. I'm just not a people person. Love isn't for me. But what if that armor is actually keeping out the very things they crave? These beliefs feel like safety, but they're prisons with invisible walls. And because they were built slowly, over years, they go unnoticed. The worst kind of cage is the one that doesn't look like a cage, and most people never realize they're living in one. So here's the uncomfortable truth. The beliefs you defend might be the ones destroying you. Not with loud explosions, but with quiet sabotage, with missed opportunities, relationships pushed away, and dreams shelved for later. And until you start noticing the pain your beliefs are causing, you'll keep calling them just the way things are. But what if pain isn't punishment? What if it's a signal, a whisper saying, you don't have to keep believing this? 4. Belief isn't evidence, it's expectation. Most people think they believe something because it's true, but it's usually the other way around. They believe it first, and then look for reasons to justify it. That's not discernment, it's mental programming. You don't look at life objectively, you scan it for confirmation of what you already expect. If you believe the world is dangerous, every stranger looks suspicious. If you believe you're unlucky, every setback becomes proof. The mind plays prosecutor and judge, all while pretending it's neutral. Take someone who thinks they're cursed in relationships. They'll zero in on every flaw, every delay in a text message, every moment of disconnection. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. The belief creates expectation. The expectation distorts perception. The perception reinforces the belief. Round and round it goes. At no point does the person stop to ask, what if this isn't evidence? What if it's just my belief looking for a story to attach itself to? This is the same reason two people can experience the same situation and walk away with opposite conclusions. One sees failure, the other sees feedback. One sees rejection, the other sees redirection. It's not the world that's different, it's the lens. Belief is not a reflection of what's real, it's a filter applied over reality, a prediction dressed up as perception. And until you realize that, you'll keep trusting the movie instead of questioning the projector. So the next time you find yourself searching for proof of something, Pause. Ask yourself, am I seeing what's there or what I've trained myself to expect? Because the scariest part isn't that your belief might be wrong, it's that your belief might be steering your life without you even noticing. And once you catch that, you start wondering, what else have I been mistaking for truth? 5. Most of your beliefs came from people who were just as confused. It's wild when you stop and think about it. Most of what you believe about life, money, love, success came from people who were just figuring it out themselves. Parents doing their best while drowning in stress, teachers repeating what they were taught, friends projecting their own fears onto you like gospel, and yet your brain took it all in as truth. It didn't ask, is this belief healthy? It just said, noted. That's the trap. Programming doesn't ask permission. It installs silently in the background. Picture a kid who grows up in a home where money always means stress, arguments, late bills, fear. That child doesn't just learn about money. They absorb a belief. Money is pressure. Fast forward 30 years, and that same kid, now an adult, might unconsciously reject financial growth. Self-sabotage, guilt, burnout. Not because they're broken, but because they inherited a belief from someone else's pain. Beliefs don't just shape decisions, they shape destinies. And it's not just the dramatic ones. Even tiny comments leave marks. You're too sensitive. Men don't cry. Get a real job. Harmless at first glance, but they sink deep. Your uncle's bitterness about his failed business becomes your fear of taking risks. Your mom's anxiety becomes your overthinking. Most people are walking around wearing mental hand-me-downs and calling it who I am. But what if most of who you are isn't really yours? So the next time you notice a belief inside you, pause, trace it, ask, where did this actually come from? If the answer leads to someone who was lost, scared, or surviving, maybe it's time to let it go. Because here's the thing, if you didn't consciously choose a belief, then it's not yours. It's just a virus in your mental software. And that realization, that's the beginning of something most people never dare to do. 6. The stronger the belief, the less you question it. The most dangerous beliefs aren't the ones that seem wrong. They're the ones that feel absolutely right. They don't scream. They whisper. They hide in plain sight, so ingrained that you forget they're even there. You don't see them. You see through them. That's what makes them powerful. A belief that feels obvious is rarely examined. It becomes part of the lens, not something you look at. And the stronger the emotion attached to it, the harder it is to step back and ask, is this true? This shows up in identity. I'm a failure. I'm the provider. I'm the fixer. These beliefs don't feel like stories. They feel like facts, but try questioning one and watch what happens. Anxiety, resistance, maybe even anger. That's the ego protecting its script. If your whole self-image is built around a belief, then letting it go feels like erasing yourself. And the mind hates that. It doesn't want freedom, it wants familiarity, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. Think of belief like gravity, always pulling, always assumed. Most people never stop to wonder where it came from or why it's there. They just build their lives around it, marry based on it, choose careers to protect it, raise kids inside it. And when life starts to break, instead of questioning the foundation, they blame the furniture. But the cracks in your life aren't random. They're often fault lines beneath an old belief that's past its expiration date. So here's the question nobody wants to ask. What belief in your life feels too sacred to question? Is it your idea of success, your definition of masculinity, your role in your family? Because the more unquestionable a belief is, the more likely it's running your life in the background. And once you feel that discomfort rising, that resistance, maybe that's not something to avoid. Maybe that's the door you've been walking past your whole life. 7. Your beliefs filter reality more than your eyes do. Your eyes may be open, but what you see is filtered, not just by light or focus, but by belief. You think you're seeing the world? Nah, you're seeing what your mind lets you see. If you believe the world is against you, your brain will highlight every rejection, every frown, every no as proof. It's not showing you truth, it's showing you consistency. The brain prefers a coherent story, even if it's painful. And that story is written in belief. Ever notice how two people can walk into the same room and experience completely different realities? One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One hears a joke, the other hears an insult. Same situation, different programming. Your perception bends to your expectations. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll miss loyalty and spot betrayal. Not because it's real, but because it fits the script. That's not clarity, it's illusion. And your brain is a master at it. This doesn't only affect how you interpret things, it shapes what you even notice. You might miss love because you expect abandonment. Overlook beauty because you expect disappointment. Your mind deletes what doesn't match the internal forecast. Think about that. You could be walking past joy, potential, even transformation, and not see it. Because belief told your brain, that's not relevant. It's like living inside a filter you forgot you applied. Beliefs aren't passive. They're active participants in every moment. They shape the questions you ask, the answers you accept, and the risks you're willing to take. So the next time you feel stuck, maybe the issue isn't outside you. Maybe it's the lens. Maybe the world hasn't changed, but your filter has. And if your filter can be changed, then what would happen if it suddenly disappeared? What would you see that's been hiding in plain sight? 8. Awakening is when you stop believing and start seeing. There's a moment, rare but real, when the mind finally goes quiet. Not because you figured everything out, but because you stopped trying. No more affirmations, no more mantras, no more desperate reaching for the next belief that might finally fix things. Just silence, and in that silence something happens. You stop labeling, stop analyzing, stop narrating. And the world, stripped of mental noise, suddenly becomes clear. Not through thought, but through presence. Not through belief, but through direct seeing. Imagine standing in front of a tree. Normally your mind jumps in. That's an oak tree. I read about those. My grandpa had one. But now, nothing. Just shape, color, movement. No story. Just now. That's what real vision feels like, not filtered through belief or memory, just raw experience. And it's both unsettling and beautiful, because for the first time, you're not interpreting life, you're meeting it. And in that meeting, there's no separation, just awareness watching itself. You don't have to earn this. You don't need to become more spiritual, more enlightened, or more anything. The truth doesn't need improvement, it just needs space. But the mind doesn't like space. It likes answers, conclusions, roles to play, so it resists this kind of seeing. It says, this can't be it. It's too simple. But simplicity doesn't mean emptiness. In fact, what's left in that stillness is more real than any belief could ever be. No distortion, no programming, just clarity. And maybe that's the real awakening, not a peak experience, not a mystical explosion, just the realization that your beliefs have been standing in the way of your vision the entire time. So the final question isn't, what should I believe instead? It's, what if I don't need to believe anything? What would your life feel like without the commentary, without the conditioning, without the character? And if that voice finally stopped, what would be left to hear?